So, here's the real question. How do dentists like you, who aren't willing to let insurance dictate how you will run your practice, who want to create incredibly profitable practices without sacrificing your time or sanity, how do you create the strategies to ensure your practice not only survives, but thrives in the 21st century? That's the blaring question, and Dr. Steve Schalintz is here to provide the answers. Welcome to Dental Practice Freedom Radio.
What is up, everybody? If you remember the last podcast episode, I was talking about what I'm going to be sharing with you in the last one, and then this one, and then the next episode from the Happiness Convention, where I was picking up bits and pieces from the author Shawn Achor, who wrote The Happiness Advantage, and then also his newest book is Big Potential. And what I'm going to do is try to relay the story he told us. Now, I know it's in the book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet because they gave us the book while we were out there, and that was just literally 2 days ago. So if I tell this story and it's not exactly how the book is, I apologize. If you guys remember the game that we played as kids called Telephone, where if somebody in the front of the room had to whisper somebody to the next person, and it just kept going on until like 30 people later, and then that last person had to say what it is they heard in their ear. It was like completely different than the first message. Well, I'm like the second rung on the telephone, so I'm already going to start to make some mistakes. So I apologize about that. But I want you to be thinking about this story in how you can take this into your practice, whether it's with your team or other colleagues, okay? So the story starts like this. But there was a researcher. I'm already screwed it up. I'm so sorry, but I'm already screwed it up. But that's okay. There was a researcher, and he was out in the wilderness, and he was trying to see where he was in space, and like everything was completely pitch black, and he didn't know exactly where he was. And all of a sudden, he saw this tree start to light up. It was a mango tree, and all of a sudden, he'd see this pulse of light. And this pulse of light, and this pulse got stronger and stronger and stronger. And pretty soon, the entire mango tree was lit up, and it was just like radiate. And you could actually see this light from 5 miles away. And this researcher was thinking to himself, how is that? What is that? How is that possible? And so he went up to the tree. And what he found was that there was just a bunch of fireflies. And they were pulsating at exactly the same height. So they were giving this light off on this mango tree. So he started, this researcher, being a researcher, right? He's like a dentist, and he's got to go pick into the analytics of it. He's trying to figure out why this was actually happening. And what he discovered was really startling. So if you know anything about, lightning bugs, what they do is they'll literally light up as an evolutionary advantage to try to attract a mate. And so if they're flying around and they light up, the females know where to find them. Now here's the crazy part. If they do that solo, which is what competitive advantage like survival of the fittest would tell you they would do, that's what most do anyway, there's a 3% chance of success in terms of mating. But here's the cool thing. When they all started to gather around the mango tree and light off at the same time, the reproductive success of each lightning bug was 82%. Think about the enormity of that. That's actually in direct contradiction to what most would say that they would do. And it wasn't just a little advantage, it was a huge advantage. And the reason Shawn Achor brought that story up is because this whole book is on how we can start to collaborate to grow our results. How our potential will truly be unlocked when we start to collaborate with others. I want you to think about, how do you interact with your team on a daily basis? Do you look at it as if you guys are lighting up together with your message, or is everybody lighting up at separate times, right? And if they're lighting up at separate times, how do you start to integrate some principles and some teamwork development so you guys are lighting up at the same time to increase your effectiveness in your practice? What about with your colleagues? Right. So I think that dentistry is such a unique profession in the sense that there is some camaraderie, there's some, kind of, working together, but there's a whole lot of isolationism in dentistry, right? There's still a lot of solo practitioners that, for all intents and purposes, they might not talk with another dentist for months and months at a time. Right? And so we never really know what's going on in other practices. And what Shawn Achor was arguing is that mindset, that inability to start to collaborate with others, is decreasing our potential both in the practice, but also more importantly for us. We're just not able to grow and develop as much as we should because we are not collaborating the right way. So that was a big aha moment for me. Like the last episode I was talking about having, success and happiness, reversing the equation so that you put success and happiness first and then the results start to come. I've heard that before, but I never really heard the story of these insects lighting up at the same time and the advantage that has. And so, me, I think I've talked about this in an earlier podcast episode, the importance of masterminding, finding accountability partners, and then masterminding together to come up with new ideas to problems that, you're trying to solve in your practice. That is so important. I can't stress that enough. Find the little fireflies that are around you that want to light up together and say, how can we really do something unique and special in our practice? And you probably have a lot of fireflies right now that are waiting to be in unison with you, and that's your team. Right? Stop looking at your team as a hindrance. It's actually one of the biggest things that I see in practices. It's this kind of antagonism between the team and the doctor. You have to start getting on the same page. Start setting common goals. Start talking about how do you work together to accomplish the goals. Not necessarily, I'm doing all the work and my team is just there to support me. See, that's a wrong approach. You have to involve your team and set goals together. And I want you to be thinking, are we these little fireflies that are lighting off at the same time, or are we competing with each other and we're doomed to failure before we ever start? And then I want you to be thinking about how do I use that concept with colleagues? How do I start to open up the communication the communication channels? I communicate with specialists that are not in dentistry, chiropractors, ENTs, like all sorts of different, groups, because if I'm doing TMJ therapy in my practice, I need to collaborate with those people. I need to collaborate with other professionals because I know that's going to help them and it's going to help me. You got to start to collaborate. You have to think, how can I form strategic partnerships and alliances with the people that I know really well? And how do we start to go towards common goals at a rate that I couldn't do if I was just going on my own? So I've learned the hard way that, if you try to do everything on your own, like most dentists do, you end up failing. You fail for a lot of reasons. You might be semi-successful from a financial standpoint. I'm not, there's a lot of dentists that can do it. But you fail other ways. You fail from emotional development. You fail from, forming the relationships that can carry you a lifetime. Like the money can come and go, but relationships will last for forever. Your personal growth and development is forever. You see this all the time. People, they have a wealth consciousness. So they think about wealth. They lose a lot of money, and 2 years later, they're doing better than they were before because they have a wealth consciousness. I want you to start to have a cooperation consciousness. Stop trying to compete with everyone. Think about how you can collaborate and make this better. And so hopefully you got something out of this episode. That was key point number 2. In the next episode, I'm just going to talk about general observations that I'm seeing that, people are really struggling with. And I see this even in dental practices. So I really want to bring that to the forefront as well. So I'll see you at the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on Dental Practice Freedom Radio with Dr. Steve Schultz. We'll see you on the next episode.